You're imagining it wrong. Not because you lack faith, not because you are unworthy, not because the promise has been withheld from you, but because you are placing yourself in the wrong position within your own imagination. You are standing outside the wish fulfilled, reaching toward it, climbing toward it, and in that very act of reaching, you are conferred it. And in that very act of reaching, you are confessing that it is not yet yours. You are declaring by the direction of your inner gaze that it exists somewhere ahead of you, somewhere beyond you, somewhere other than where you are now. And Neville told us plainly, the future never comes. There is only now. There is only this moment, the eternal moment in which consciousness stands. And if you are perpetually imagining yourself moving toward your desire, you are perpetually placing it in a tomorrow that will never arrive. You are rehearsing the state of wanting, of seeking, of striving, and the world, which is yourself pushed out, must reflect that state back to you endlessly. So tonight I want to take you by the hand and show you what Neville meant when he said, stop imagining getting it. Imagine having it, not as a future event, not as a reward waiting at the end of some long and winding path, but as a present fact, a fact so real, so solid, so intimate, that when you close your eyes tonight, you do not see yourself walking toward it. You see from it, you feel from it, you think from it, you think from it, you rest in it. Because, as Neville said again and again, assumption hardens into fact. But you must assume from the end, you must occupy the state, you must wear the feeling of the wish fulfilled as though it were your own skin. This is not about pretending. This is not about denying your senses. This is about understanding where creation actually occurs. It does not occur in the outer world. It occurs in imagination. And imagination, Neville tells us, is God. It is the creative power itself. It is the only reality. So when you imagine, you are not playing games. You are selecting the state from which the world will crystallize. And if you select the state of having, rather than the state of wanting, you will watch the outer world rearrange itself to match that inner knowing. I have seen it happen, Neville saw it happen, and you will see it happen when you finally stop imagining the journey and begin imagining the destination as present fact. Let us begin. Welcome. If this is your first time here, you have arrived at a place where the teachings of Neville Goddard are not simply discussed, they are lived, they are tested, they are applied. This is not philosophy for its own sake. This is the science of imagining, the art of assuming, the practice of living from the wish fulfilled. And today we are going deep into one of the most misunderstood aspects of his teaching, the difference between imagining yourself moving toward your desire and imagining yourself already in possession of it. It sounds like a small distinction. It is not. It is the difference between a life spent perpetually chasing and a life spent perpetually receiving. It is the difference between hope deferred and assumption fulfilled. So settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to change the way you imagine forever. Let me tell you something Neville once said in a lecture, and I am paraphrasing only slightly because the essence of it struck me so deeply. He said, most people think imagination is a rehearsal for action. They imagine what they want, and then they wait for the outer world to show them the steps they must take to get it. But that is not how it works. Imagination is not a preview. It is the creative act itself. When you imagine, you are not preparing for life. You are creating it. You are selecting the state. And the outer world has no choice but to reflect that state back to you. But here is the key. The state you must select is not the state of wanting or seeking or becoming. It is the state of already being, of already having, of already possessing. Because consciousness does not create from desire. It creates from assumption. It creates from the feeling of the wish already fulfilled. So when you sit down to imagine your desire, what do you imagine? Do you imagine yourself applying for the job, hoping they will call you back? Do you imagine yourself texting the person, hoping they will respond? Do you imagine yourself texting the person, hoping they will respond? Do you imagine yourself working hard, grinding, hustling, slowly inching your way toward the finish line? If so, you're placing yourself in the state of lack, of effort, of separation. And that state will harden into fact just as surely as any other. The world will reflect it back to you. You will find yourself perpetually in the middle of the journey, perpetually one step away, perpetually almost there. And you will wonder why the promise has not come. But it is not the promise that has failed. It is the state you are occupying. Neville tells us clearly, live in the end. Dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled. Do not imagine the means. Do not imagine the process. Do not imagine yourself getting it. Imagine having it. Imagine the moment after it has already come. Imagine the moment after it has already come. Imagine the feeling of possession, of satisfaction, of naturalness. Because that is the state that creates. That is the state that summons the corresponding reality from the infinite field of possibilities. Let us go deeper. Let us look at why imagining the journey keeps the fulfillment forever in the future. It is a subtle trap, and most people fall into it without realizing. They sit down to do their imaginal work with sincerity, with focus, with intention. They close their eyes and they imagine. But what they imagine is movement toward the goal. They imagine the interview going well. They imagine the conversation where reconciliation begins. They imagine the incremental progress, and they think they are doing the work, but they are not. They are reinforcing the very state they are trying to leave behind. Let me explain it this way. Consciousness is always now, always present tense, always here. There is no past and no future in consciousness. There is only the eternal now, and the eternal now takes its shape from the assumption you hold in this moment. If you assume you are wealthy, the now reshapes itself to reflect wealth. If you assume you are loved, the now reshapes itself to reflect love. But if you assume you are on the way to wealth, if you assume you are hoping for love, if you assume you are working toward health, then the now reshapes itself to reflect that in-between state, the state of waiting, the state of not yet, and the outer world, which is nothing more than consciousness pushed out, solidifies that. You remain on the way. You remain in process. You remain perpetually approaching, but never arriving. Neville used to say it so plainly. He would say, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot assume you have it, and assume you are waiting for it at the same time. You must choose. You must take a position. And the only position that creates the thing desired is the position of already possessing it. Not hoping to possess it someday dibeys the vision of already possessing it. Not hoping to possess it someday, but feeling, right now, in this present moment, the reality of possession. Think of it like this. Imagine you want a new home, a beautiful home, exactly as you desire it. Now, if you sit down tonight to imagine, and you imagine yourself browsing listings, going to open houses, making offers, negotiating with sellers, what are you imagining? You are imagining the state of seeking a home, and that is the state you will remain in, the state of seeking a home, and that is the state you will remain in. The outer world will give you more listings to browse, more open houses to attend, more negotiations that lead nowhere. Because you are not imagining from the end. You are imagining the middle. You are imagining the gap between here and there. And consciousness, ever faithful, says yes to that assumption and gives you more gap. But what if, instead, you imagine yourself already in the home? What if you imagine walking through your own front door, feeling the floor beneath your feet, hanging your coat in your own closet, sitting at your own kitchen table, looking out your own window at the view you love? What if you imagine it so vividly, so sincerely, that for a moment you forget you are imagining? For a moment it is real. You are there. You are home. You are not waiting for it. You have it. And when you open your eyes, you do not demand to see it physically manifested in that instant. You simply rest in the inner knowing that it is done. That assumption, that feeling of already having it, that is what creates. That is what moves mountains. That is what collapses time and summons the thing itself into your world in ways you cannot predict and need not orchestrate. Neville called this living in the end. And he did not mean visualizing the end once or twice. He meant occupying the feeling of the end as your dwelling place. He meant returning to it again and again until it becomes natural, until it feels more real than the evidence of your senses, until your inner conversations flow from that state. Your emotional tone flows from that state. Your entire sense of self flows from that state. Because it is not the imaginal act alone that creates. It is the state you persist in. It is the assumption you wear. It is the feeling you live from. Let me share a story. It is one of those small, quiet testimonies that Neville loved to collect because they prove the law so simply. A woman once wrote to Neville and said she had been imagining for months that she would get a particular job. She imagined applying. She imagined being called for an interview. She imagined performing well. She imagined them being impressed. But the call never came. The job never materialized. She was discouraged. She thought the law had failed her. But then she attended one of Neville's lectures, and he said exactly what I am telling you now. Stop imagining getting it. Imagine having it. So she changed her approach. She stopped imagining the interview. She stopped imagining the process. Instead, she imagined herself already employed. She imagined sitting at the desk in the office, doing the work, receiving the paycheck, chatting with co-workers. She imagined it as though it had already happened. And within 2 weeks, she received a call. Not for the job she had been chasing, but for a different position, a better one she had not even applied for. Someone had recommended her. The door opened effortlessly, and she realized that the moment she stopped imagining the pursuit and began imagining the possession, the outer world shifted to match. That is not coincidence. That is law. That is consciousness, externalizing the state you occupy, and the state of having is always more powerful than the state of wanting. Always. Now let us turn to the second part of this teaching. And this is where it becomes deeply practical. How do you construct a scene that implies the wish fulfilled? What does having it feel like from the inside? Because it is not enough to imagine the thing itself. You must imagine from the perspective of the person who already has it. You must think their thoughts, feel their feelings, see through their eyes. Neville called this the first-person perspective. Not watching yourself have it as though you are observing from the outside, but experiencing it directly, intimately, as though you are living it right now. This is where most people stumble. They imagine themselves in a scene, but they imagine themselves as a character in a movie. They see themselves from a distance. They watch themselves receiving the good news, embracing the lover, holding the check. And that is third person. That is observation. That is not creation. Creation happens in the first person. That is not creation. It happens when you see from your own eyes, feel from your own body, hear from your own ears. It happens when the imaginal act is so real, so present, so sensory, that for a moment the division between inner and outer collapses. For a moment you are there. Neville used to say, if you want to imagine wealth, do not imagine looking at a bank statement. That is too abstract. Imagine something that would be natural to you if you are already wealthy. Imagine the weight of the pen in your hand as you sign a check. Imagine the texture of the fabric of a garment you have wanted. Imagine the voice of a friend congratulating you. Make it simple. Make it sensory. Make it real. Because the more real it feels in imagination, the more quickly it will solidify, in fact. Let me walk you through an example. Suppose you desire a specific relationship to be healed. Perhaps it is estranged. Perhaps it is estranged. Perhaps the other person has said things are over. You want reconciliation. You want closeness. You want love restored. Now, if you imagine it wrong, you will imagine yourself texting them, hoping they respond. You will imagine yourself apologizing, hoping they respond. You will imagine yourself apologizing, hoping they forgive. You will imagine yourself waiting, hoping they reach out. And all of that is imagining from the state of separation. It is imagining the gap. It is imagining the journey. And the journey will stretch on. But if you imagine it right, you will imagine the moment after reconciliation has already occurred. You will imagine sitting beside them, feeling their warmth, hearing their laughter, sensing their ease. You will imagine a simple, natural moment. Perhaps you are both having coffee. Perhaps they reach across the table and touch your hand. Perhaps they say something kind, something that implies everything is okay between you. And you feel it. You feel the gratitude. You feel the love. You do not imagine how it happened. You do not imagine the steps that led to this moment. You simply imagine the moment itself, as though it is happening now, and you loop it. You return to it. You dwell in it, until it feels more real than the estrangement you are currently experiencing in the outer world. That is the art. That is the technique. That is what Neville called the pruning shears of revision and the sculpting power of assumption. You are not waiting for the outer world to change so you can feel this way. You are feeling this way so the outer world must change. You are not hoping the relationship will heal so you can imagine relief. You are imagining relief so the relationship must heal. Do you see the reversal? Do you see the power of it? Neville once said, And I love this line. Do not ask how. Do not ask when will make it happen. Simply assume it is done, and let the how unfold in ways you cannot now imagine. Your job is not to orchestrate the means. Your job is to occupy the end. The bridge of incidents, the series of events that bring the thing to pass, that is not your concern. That is handled by a wisdom far greater than the conscious mind. That is handled by a wisdom far greater than the conscious mind. That is handled by the law itself, by the infinite intelligence that Neville called God, that he called imagination, that he called I am. So let us be practical. Let us talk about scene construct. When you sit down tonight to do your imaginal work, and I hope you do, I hope you take this teaching and apply it immediately, you must first ask yourself, what would it feel like if it were already done? Not what it will feel like, what it does feel like. Present tense. And then you build a scene, a short scene, no more than a few seconds long, that implies that feeling. The scene must be simple. Do not try to imagine an entire day or an entire sequence of events. Neville always said, keep it short, keep it repeatable, keep it sensory, because the more you repeat it, the more deeply it impresses your subconscious. And it is the subconscious, the deeper layers of your own consciousness, that actually does the creating. The conscious mind selects the state. The subconscious externalizes it. So let us say you want financial freedom. Do not imagine the number in your bank account. That is abstract. That is mental. It does not stir the feeling strongly enough. Instead, imagine something physical, something sensory. Imagine yourself holding a set of keys to a home you have purchased outright. Feel the metal in your hand. Hear the jingle. Imagine turning the key in the lock and stepping inside, knowing it is yours, fully paid for. Or imagine a friend saying to you, you must be doing well, and you smile and say, I am, with ease, with naturalness. Or imagine a friend saying to you, you must be doing well, and you smile and say, I am, with ease, with naturalness. Or imagine looking at a bill and tossing it aside because sideburr. These are simple acts, but they imply the state. They imply financial ease. They imply possession. And when you repeat them, when you dwell in them, when you fall asleep feeling them, they harden into fact. Or suppose you want health. Do not imagine the absence of symptoms. The mind does not respond well to negatives. Instead, imagine something that would be natural if you were already healthy. Imagine going for a run and feeling strong. Imagine someone saying, you look wonderful, and you feel the truth of it in your body. Imagine waking up and stretching, feeling ease, feeling vitality. Make it real. Make it now. Make it first person. Neville would often say, live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And feeling is the secret. Feeling is the key. Not emotion in the sense of excitement or desperation, but feeling in the sense of inner knowing. The quiet, calm sense that it is done. That is the feeling. That is what you must cultivate. And you cultivate it by dwelling in scenes that imply it is done, by thinking from the end rather than toward the end. There is a passage in one of Neville's lectures, I believe it was from the 1948 series, where he said something like this: if you want to imagine a trip to another country, do not imagine packing your bags. Do not imagine boarding the plane. Imagine yourself already there. Imagine standing on foreign soil, feeling the air, hearing the language, touching the ground. Imagine the moment after arrival, because that is the end. That is the wish fulfilled. And the moment you occupy that state in imagination, you set into motion everything necessary to bring it to pass. In fact, the tickets will come, the opportunity will come, the opportunity will come, the money will come, but it does not come because you imagine the end, and the means are always provided to match the end you have assumed. This is the teaching. This is the secret. This is what Neville meant when he said again and again, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not the feeling of hoping it will be fulfilled, not the feeling of hoping it will be fulfilled, not the feeling of it already being fulfilled, already done, already yours, and the world, which is yourself pushed out, which is consciousness objectified, must conform to that assumption. Now let us slow down and let this settle. Let us move into the practical application, the part where I guide you step by step, so that tonight, or today, or whenever you sit down to do this work, you know exactly what to do this work. You know exactly what to do. First, choose one desire. Just one. Do not try to imagine 10 things at once. Choose the one that matters most right now, the one that, if it were fulfilled, would bring you the deepest sense of relief, joy, or peace. Hold that desire in mind. Now ask yourself, what would it feel like if this were already done? Not someday, not next week, but now. If this were already true, if I already had it, how would I feel? What would be natural to me? What would I take for granted? From that feeling, construct a simple scene. 4 or 5 seconds is enough. It could be an action you perform. It could be something you hear. It could be something you hear. It could be an action you perform. It could be something you hear. It implies the wish fulfilled. It implies you already have it. For example, if you want a marriage proposal, do not imagine the proposal. Imagine wearing the ring. Feel it on your finger. Turn your hand and catch the light on it. Imagine a friend noticing and saying congratulations, and you smile. That is the end. That implies it has already happened. Once you have your scene, you are going to enter into what Neville called the state, akin to sleep. That implies it has already happened. Once you have your scene, you are going to enter into what Neville called the state akin to sleep. This is the drowsy, relaxed state just before you drift off at night, or just before you fully wake in the morning. It is the state in which the conscious mind loosens its grip and the subconscious becomes impressionable. Neville called this the most powerful time for imagining, because in that state your assumptions sink deeply into consciousness and begin to harden into fact. So tonight, as you lie in bed, do not reach for your phone. Do not replay the day. Do not worry about tomorrow. Instead, close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Let your body relax. Let your mind grow still. And then gently, without strain, bring your scene to mind. See it. Feel it. Hear it. Live it. You not watch it from a distance. Be in it. First person. Present tense. Real. Loop the scene. Play it again. And again. Each time, feel it more deeply. Let the feeling grow. Let the naturalness of it settle in. You are not pretending. You are not lying to yourself. You are simply selecting a sezzetit. You are occupying a point of view. And from that point of view, the thing is done. It is already yours. If your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back. No frustration. No judgment. Just return to the scene. Return to the feeling. Keep doing this until you fall asleep, within the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is the technique. That is what Neville called SATs, the state akin to sleep. And he said it is the most powerful tool you have for impressing your subconscious with the state you wish to embody. Do this every night, not with effort, not with strain, but with gentle persistence. Because assumption, though it hardens into fact, must be persisted in. You would not plant a seed and then dig it up each day to see if it has sprouted. You plant it, you water it, you trust the process, and in time it grows. So it is with your imaginal acts. You do not check the outer world every morning to see if it has conformed yet. You simply return to the state. You dwell in the end. You persist. And in ways you cannot now predict, the outer world will shift to match. Now let me tell you something deeper. Something Neville spoke about often, but which many people miss. This teaching is not just about getting things. It is not just about manifesting a new car or a new relationship or a new bank balance. Those things are wonderful. Those things are yours to claim. But the real teaching, the real power of this law, is that it reveals who you are. It reveals that you are not a person in the world, hoping that the world will be kind to you. You are consciousness itself. You are the operant power. You are the creator. The world is not happening to you. The world is happening from you. It is yourself pushed out. And when you finally understand that, when you finally live from that understanding, everything changes. Not just your circumstances, but your entire sense of self. Neville said it plainly. I am. That is the name of God, and that is your name, not your human name. Not the name on your birth certificate, but the I am within you. That is the Creator. That is the power. That is the one who imagines. And whatever you attach to that I am, you become. If you say I am all, you become it. If you say I am all loved, you become it. If you say I am partket, But if you say, I am wealthy, I am loved, I am powerful, I am healthy, I am free, and you feel it, and you persist in it, you become that too. Because I am is the name of the Creator. And whatever follows, I am is the Creator. So when you do this work, when you imagine having rather than getting, you are not just trying to change your circumstances. You are changing your sense of I am. You are stepping into a new state. You are putting on a new garment. And Neville loved that metaphor. He said, states are like garments. You can put them on. You can take them off. You can wear the state of wealth or the state of poverty. You can wear the state of love or the state of loneliness. It is your choice. Always your choice. Because consciousness is the only reality, and you are consciousness. Do you see how far this goes? It is not just about imagination as a tool. It is about imagination as a tool. It is about imagination as a very substance of reality. It is about recognizing that everything you see, everything you experience, is consciousness pushed out. It is your own wonderful human imagination made visible. And the moment you truly accept that, the moment you stop giving power to the outer world, to circumstances, to other people, to the past, to conditions, and you start giving power to your own I am, to your own assumption, to your own imaginal acts, that is the moment you step into your birthright. That is the moment you become the Creator Neville always said you were. Let me share one more story before we close. Neville told this story many times because it illustrates the power of assuming from the end. A man came to him once, a young man, and said he wanted to go to another city to start a business. But he had no money, he had no contacts, he had no means. He asked Neville what to do. And Neville did not give him a business plan. He did not tell him to work harder or save more or network more. He simply said, assume you are already there. Assume you are already established. Do not imagine the journey. Imagine the end. Imagine yourself in that city, running your business, successful, fulfilled. Feel it. Live in it. And do not let the evidence of your senses sway you. The man did exactly that. Every night, he imagined himself in the new city. He imagined himself at work, in his own business, surrounded by success. But the man did excel. At where? He persisted. And within a matter of weeks, he received an unexpected offer. A relative he barely knew contacted him and offered to finance his move and his business. It came out of nowhere. It came because the assumption came first. The outer world rearranged itself to match the inner state. That is the law. That is how it works. Always. So tonight, as you prepare to imagine, remember this. You are not imagining to make something happen. You are imagining, because imagination is the creative power. You are not trying to convince the universe or God or anyone else to give you what you want. You are assuming the state of the wish fulfilled, and the law, which is impersonal and unfailing, must reflect that state back to you. That is not belief. That is not hope. That is certainty. That is knowledge. And when you live from that knowledge, when you dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you stop being a beggar. You stop being a seeker. You become the one who already has. You become the one who knows. And that is when everything changes. Let me leave you with this. You clicked on this episode because something in you knew you were imagining it wrong. You knew there was a shift you needed to make, a subtle but powerful shift. And now you know what it is. You have been imagining toward the thing. You have been imagining the process, the effort, the gap. And Neville is telling you, stop. Stop imagining getting it. Imagine having it. Imagine the end. Imagine the feeling of possession, of fulfillment, of already being the person who has received. Do not imagine the climb. Imagine the summit. Do not imagine the door opening. Imagine yourself already inside, because that is the state that creates. That is the state that summons the corresponding reality from the invisible into the visible. And here is the beautiful part. You do not have to be perfect at this. You do not have to do it flawlessly. You simply have to persist. You simply have to return to the state again and again, gently, naturally, until it becomes familiar, until it becomes you. Because assumption, though at first it may feel like pretending, becomes fact when you persist in it. It hardens, it solidifies, it externalizes, and one day you will open your eyes and see in the world around you the very thing you have been faithfully imagining, and you will know, beyond any doubt, that consciousness is the only reality, that imagination creates reality, and that you are the operant power in your own life. So go now. Do not wait. Do not put this off. Tonight, as you lie down to sleep, choose one desire. Choose one scene. Make it simple. Make it sensory. Make it simple. Make it sensory. Make it first person. And imagine it as though it is happening now. Not someday. Not hopefully. But now. Feel it. Dwell in it. Fall asleep in it. And let the Lord do the rest. Let your own wonderful human imagination, which Neville tells us is God himself, bring it to pass in ways more beautiful than you can now conceive. You are not imagining it wrong anymore. You know the secret now. You know the shift. From getting to having. From hoping to knowing. From seeking to possessing. That is the teaching. That is the way. And that is the promise fulfilled. Sleep in the wish fulfilled tonight. And watch your world transform.